Represent As-Sabiqun movement, and I'm the Imam at Masjid al-Islam, technically in D.C. and technically in Oakland. Because the movement is not as functional as it was before. At one time we had 10 centers, and they were all packed with people. And this CD or DVD is made for most of the visitors and participants at IEC in Potomac, Maryland. As we made one last week, it was for the Saba Center in San Jose, California. Both of these centers are huge functional realities. And I want to begin this. This is technically a fundraiser. We're asking you to donate, and we're asking you to donate not to Masjid al-Islam, but to me personally. And my slave name is Clarence Reams, R-E-A-M-S. Do not donate or send checks to Masjid al-Islam, at least not now. For decades, all of our literature and all our checking and all our banking was in Masjid al-Islam. But several years ago, the U.S. government actually took the money in our account and took our name off of the account and gave it to some, let's call them highway robbers. Well, and they gave it to them. This was public. But you have to remember what our position on these. This was during the era of design fitna. And I have to say this to you so you will get some understanding of how we are and what we've been doing so far. Number one, we've realized the struggle that we've been in since the very beginning of this struggle, which was at the beginning of the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979. By 1980, we were very familiar with it. By 1981, we were traveling all over the country, speaking on the subject, opening centers. We opened a center in Denver. We opened one later on in Oakland. Although we were from Oakland, we opened a center in Denver before we opened one in Oakland. It's because we had a wonderful group of young people there. And when we arrived there making a speech, the brothers were so impressed, they kind of asked me to stay there for a while. And I stayed there all the winter of 81, and by 82 we opened we opened a masjid there. And it's still there now, but it's not called Masjid al-Islam. There's a resident alim there, and it's a good group. Okay. So we're not new at this. That's the first thing that we want to let you know. The next thing we want to let you know is that we have some understanding of the environment in which we're living in and the history of that environment. So no matter what other people's understanding might be, and no matter what their picture of what we were dealing with might look like to them, we had an obligation to carry on our struggle by the methods and ideas and things that that we knew would work. Some of them we knew would work, and some of them were experimental because there was no book written on the stages that we had arrived in. Most of the movements in America were wiped out in their infancy. Therefore, as we kept moving along, I would say by the time we was, let's just say 20 years ago, technically 25 years ago, and in reality 35 years ago, we was breaking new ground. I want you to understand that, number one, there's an active group in America, and they're saying things like death to America, Magbag America, and they're doing all kind of stuff. Okay, those people didn't really understand what they were saying, but I understood what they were saying, and I understood how the people around them was reacting. So it was my responsibility to design methods that might give a little more longevity and stability to what we was doing. Because now that's because of our past history. We had already graduated from or in the black movement, which when we look at it, we haven't found many graduates. I would say none, but we don't want to go that far. But there's nobody graduated step by step and survived. We have imams like down, I'll just say Atlanta, which you would know the name if you researched. They pulled on through. They accepted Islam. They became known as Muslims, and they survived. I don't want to get off the subject, but I want to mention something that happens to people sometime. When you're boxed into a situation and you think there's no way out of it, you might commit some type of movement suicide by doing things that if you do that, that's obvious. And if you do that thing that's presented to you, it's basically ridiculous because it's the system taking a pond, which they have 1 million ponds, and they're saying, now here you go do that. And if you respond to that, it might be many reasons. It's not cowardice. It's not, there's no word I can think of it. It's a mixture of learned helplessness. It's a mixture of that, where you're conditioned by the environmental circumstances that there's no way out of this. Therefore, you want to keep your dignity and you want to keep your name and your historical reality intact. Therefore, you do something that might go along with that history and with that but it is technically a type of suicide. Semi-conscious suicide. In other words, people may have told you that that won't be the right thing to do. And it could be a type of personal arrogance. Personal arrogance, because you have to remember, all of those things like arrogance, instability, too much need for emotional stability, all those things will be used against you, even arrogance. And sometimes that's used against some of our greatest personalities. And I know because that was used on me. All of you probably know I was assaulted in Oakland in a very brutal way. But leading up to that assault, I had been harassed and arrested and many times already. And the people are studying, not only the people that they can see certain people that you relate to very well, and they might think if it worked on him, it'll work on him. Now, I don't want to get too metaphysical, but and I'll go to the point. I'm not going to be here a long time. Honest engine. So, we have been doing, microscopic research about the movement. In fact, technically, that's all we do. Sometimes we need to get a little air from it. So we might take people when they want, they take a vacation, they take walks. They even go to the movies. They just let that stuff off of their mind because that's all they do. And that's healthy and unhealthy at the same time. You have to choose what your level of healthiness is. Okay, so you've been spending the 98% of your time on that subject. So how about 85? And every now and then, take off. You don't have to do anything. Just take your mind off that, the movement. You got to do it. I don't say you got to do it, but you should do it every now and then. I would tell you a story about that, but if I tell you a story, I'll be telling them for the next 6 months. So our position as Imam Abdul Alim Musa, a friend of the Islamic Republic, a friend of Hezbollah, a friend of Yemen, a friend of Palestine, a friend of everybody that they don't like. Even now, or even at that time, studying relative knowledge based on who is now their nemesis, their antithesis. They are against China. I mean, big time. One of our biggest articles was psychological guerrilla warfare. Psychological guerrilla warfare, based on the exact tactics of guerrilla warfare. Physical guerrilla warfare. But it's psychological guerrilla warfare. And I think we did all right. I think we did all right. I think we're doing all right. And inshallah, we're going to try to keep on moving in that direction. So, the title of the talk today is The Great Recovery. This was written 9 years ago. And a setback is nothing but a setup for a comeback. A lot of y'all won't remember designed fitna. Now, if we're thinking about all of these subjects and blending it all together, right, we come up with certain tactics and strategy. Strategy is the long, long range. Strategic management under conditions of repression. strategic management in general. All those articles, 10, 12, yeah, they 12 and 15 years old almost. Yeah. Okay, so the idea of strategic management under repression and also a setback is nothing but a setup for a comeback. Okay, now all of that, I'm going to try to blend it together. So we had a certain setup, and it worked very well. It's called designed fitna. If you go back 10 years ago, that was, we were working on that a lot. Design fitna. This is new. That's totally new. That's a monumental step. I mean, that is a big jump in movement thinking. What are you talking about? Design fitna means you're going to go head up with the people that you're struggling against and about, and you're going to design things, fitna, that they will respond to, and they will respond the way you want them to. And they're not going to be nice about it. They're not nice things. But those fitnas, when you go about it and look at it, I'll put it like this. The government has changed the names of some of our properties in Oakland. I mean, it's a whole block. It's from 8801 all the way to 8121. It's 8,000. It's 16,000 square feet. 8,000 square feet has buildings on it. That property was sold. That property is in our name. That property was sold because while we were here, there are people that we have nicknames like Baba Kloon and all that. So I would lean forward to Baba Kloon and I would say, they're going to sell our property. They're going to sell our property. And I would repeat it. It's almost like brainwashing. And they do. That's what they do. And it's illegal. It's illegal, but that's fine. That ain't nothing. We got a long way to go. In our first confrontation with the United States government, we didn't win like we wanted to. This was way back in the 70s, early 70s, in fact. With no experience, we took on the government, but we learned what we needed to learn. And even we might repeat some of that stuff that went on then. But we'd set up a whole program to challenge the government. And the only thing about it, the people that knew about it were all drug addicts, drug dealers, and that type of thing. So therefore, when I came and turned myself in to the government, which I've spent years traveling and organizing this package to challenge the government because they had set me up. And it was illegal what they did. So I spent all of that time to get the package together. And then I came and turned myself in. While I was traveling, I had all kind of law books. You know what I mean? I'd have people send me the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure and all of that stuff. Black's Law Dictionary. It had a wonderful outline in there about conspiracy. So when a group of people work together, or entrapment, when the government works together on a common goal to entrap a human being, it is illegal because the human being has natural weaknesses. And it is against the law for the government to take, that's against the law. Well, it was against the law. It's still against the law, but it's a lot of flowery discourse mixed in there that they can do what they want, to you. Let me speed up and move toward a conclusion. Design fitna. Design fitna is, we learned from our first, going to prison, federal prison. And we threatened the government with what we're going to say this, we're going to do that. I was only able to get a couple of witnesses that would verify where I was coming from. One of them was a county sheriff in Alameda County, and he was a young guy, and it's a long story, but he was all right. Because I seen him come down to the federal court in L.A., and he had his Alameda County sheriff's uniform on. He knew what he was doing. And he knew what was going on in Alameda County in Oakland with me, because he's a county sheriff, right? And anyway, because I noticed how the government responded after they talked to him. They said, whatever they did up in Oakland don't have nothing to do with us down here in L.A. But it does. Anyway, let me get back at, it's hard to stay on track sometime or force yourself to have a short talk, which I'm going to do the best I can. Great recovery, a setback is nothing but a setup for a comeback. We have been dealing with this, what we're dealing with right now in D.C., for decades. But in this go-around, we had studied some struggles before. And one of the main ones that we liked had the concept of longevity. Longevity. It's like same way Martin Luther King used it. He said in his, when I've been to the mountaintop speech, the last one he made, longevity has its place, but he already knew whoever talked to him, you ain't going to be here for a few more days, and that's it for you. Sometimes they get that message. Malcolm got the same type of message. So he knew that, okay, I'm gone. They asked him once in a question and answer, he said, I'm a walking dead man. Yeah, he used that term, I'm a walking dead man. So we studied everybody and all these people. We just told you about one of our good friends that might have committed a type of movement suicide. And they would commit movement suicide based on learned pessimism. Learned pessimism. In other words, learned optimism is one thing, but you can be trained to be pessimistic too. Like you can be trained to be optimistic, right? I'll use the quick dog thing that they use. They put dogs in the cage and they electrify the cage. So if the dog jumps on the side of the cage, it's electrified. If he jumped on the other side, it's electrified. When he lays down, it's electrified. Electrified. They're doing the study. So pretty soon, the They turn it down a little bit, then they turn it up, and that dog jumps up and starts hollering, salivating, sweat, everything an animal can do. And he, again, jumps on the side to get out. It can't get out. It's electrified. Jump over there. It's electrified. When he lays down, he's electrified just to be laying down in that cage. It's all electrified. Then they turn it again. They turn it off, or turn it down again, and then they turn it up, and they turn it up, and they turn it up, and the dog don't move. They've trained the dog that there's no way you can get out. So he just lays there and defecates on himself, loses all body function, but he don't do nothing no. He don't even holler no more. Why? Because he's exhausted everything he can think of to get out of that cage. There's no escape. There's no escape. This is the thing that the government try to do to our people. And 98% of the time, it works. It just hasn't worked here. So far, because I'm looking for everybody that I can look for to see, what's been happening to them, how they reacting to it. I'm looking for that I'm looking for it for the last 40 years. And because at that time, that's when I know what's going on. I mean, I have learned. The first experience, people didn't even get through that properly. So now we're into a period you're trained to be pessimistic, right? And if you put another dog in that cage and turn up the juice, they'll jump right out because they haven't been conditioned. It's just like there's another one about this training. There's I think of the fish, but it loves a mackerel or something like that. So they got these cages, the fish tanks, barracuda and mackerel. Barracuda love mackerel. So they got a glass partition in there that barracuda can't see. So it's like glass ceiling. Zzz, dinner. Zzz, bam, he hits that glass. And of course, he's a little dizzy, and he swam back a while, and he's getting hungry and hungry. He said, "That's the only reason I didn't get him because I didn't try hard enough. Something is going on. He can't see the glass, so something else is going on. It's me. I better just put a little bit more energy and fin power in this and go and get dinner." Zzz, bam! And he hit the glass partition again. After a while, he gets hungrier, but they pull the glass partition up, and he swims up to where the glass partition was and goes back. And there's dinner on the other side. But he's not aware that they pulled the glass partition up. This is just normal. Why? Because he done went up, swam, he done tried all his might to get at that food, which he loves. Barracuda love mackerel. That's what they eat. Oh man, mackerel, not this old regular old fishy fish. We have a real dinner today. Mackerel, right? They eat everything, but this is what they really like. You do it with animals, you do it with human beings. They conditioned what they talk about, the glass ceiling for women. Glass ceiling, you put the thing up there, the bugs fly up, and then they can't get out there, they come back down. And after a while, all they do is fly around in that array. So it's a training, and it really works. It works. So a person have to study all of that, or could study all of that, and be determined that ain't no glass ceiling, ain't no glass barrier, and no ain't no electrocuted cage. It ain't gonna work. Okay? So whoever goes through all of that, they have to have some special characteristics. They have to believe in something above and beyond themselves. And they have to believe, or they could believe, that there's another force that's observing this. And if they have trust and confidence in that reality, that they'll hook them right through it, because they had made everything. So there's a belief system hooked to it. Now, the people that's doing trained optimism, or learned optimism is true too. You can learn to be optimistic, right? That's why on our stuff we always have love, optimism, and what's that other thing? Huh? Kindness. Yeah, that's what we fight with. We fight with that. Why? Because nobody's ever fought with that before. You got to think about okay, now everybody's tried hatred, meanness, right, deception, but ain't nobody right. They tried all of that. What happened? They tried. So you sit back. Now this is years ago. They haven't tried love. Well, that's Jesus sounding stuff. Still ain't nobody tried it. What about optimism? Well, the more you try to fight old boss man, and he mess with your friends, and he steal from you, he run you crazy, you get mean. The people get mean. I've had friends in the movement. They were treated, some of them were overseas, like they ran overseas. They're in the newspaper, big so-and-so, black power and all of that. And nobody sends them any money, nobody helps them, and they can't get a job because they're using an assumed name, and they don't have no paperwork where they're going in that, you know what I mean? If they can't have no passport that say Eldridge Cleaver or H. Brown. Their passport, like my passport, said somebody else. When I was on the run, every passport I had no passport in my slave name. Like, this is me, here I am. Because all I had to do was push a button, and he's over here. They go there and get you. But anyway, so this takes decades of study and work and being very sincere. So this is not, the stuff we talk in the khutbahs, it's not normal, but it's real. There's nothing made up in the khutbahs. All of it is happening right then, or it has happening, and this is a research project. Remember, we have to find the key to transform ourselves from the life we're living under this monster, right? To, evidently we need a new world, because the old one is smoked all up. I don't care if you're political or non-political. You know that the world we're living in is not going to be here the way it is for much longer. And we also know that the acceleration of decline has creeped in. Not creeped in, it's done jumped in. So we're declining, the earth is declining, right? The air is declining, the water is declining now at a rapid rate. It's been declining for the last 100 years, ever since we've been doing some of the modern stuff we do. But I'm talking about in the last decades, it's done just fell off the cliff, right? Okay, now if we're going to help that, if we're going to participate in the rescue mission, we have to really do some research. We got a lot of things going for us. Number one, boss man don't think niggas have the ability to research that long, right? To be that detailed and note taking. They don't have the detail and experimentation to experiment. Well, if that's true, you notice we use the word redundancy a lot. Redundancy is the ability to test something 50 times without batting an eye. How many Negroes even think about that? They don't do it because they haven't been exposed to that. And they don't know that that's one of the guidelines. So, boss man got all the records. We do this, we do that. They're going to get mad, they're going to get angry, they're going to get frustrated. They're either going to quit and go home. That's the way the movement is. That's why if you see somebody in the real movement for 10 years, they are a super veteran. Why? Because they've studied. They got 5 years of movement in them. This is what they come up with. 5 years. And they walk around carrying signs and doing all that. And like one white boy told me when they was transferring us from one prison to another, and we was chained together. And when we got to one of the places down there, La Tuna, it's right in Anderson. It's on the Mexican border in Anderson, Texas. I mean, you could see the border, and it's a federal prison. So we was chained together. Now, when we would get to where we was going, he would hang with the white boys, you know what I mean? And then, of course, I'd be with the Negroes. Like when we get to the prison, they leave us in that prison a while. We either in the hole or we get a chance to walk on the yard for a while. But wherever we go, we'd separate. And then when we get back, we getting on the bus again, we'd be together. And he was telling me about one of his friends. I'd see him. They had another guy in the hole in La Tuna. He was one of the revolutionary white boys. So he was telling me the white boy's idea. He said, because he was semi-revolutionary himself, but he had became a yogi, not escaping, but he just do yoga. You can't whoop boss man. This is where they think. So hell, I'll do yoga or something. You know what I mean? I'll try to reach enlightenment. But anyway, he said, yeah, the guys, I said, that's so-and-so in there. Yeah, and they have him in the hole sometimes. So yeah. He says, you beat your head up against the wall for years, and then they go hire one of these idiots, or a guard, and tell them to come by and plaster the wall up. And that's it. That's the way the white boys was thinking. And it made sense to Negroes and everybody else, because the movement have certain life period, and they talk about the long period. Was no long period. If you take from the 60s, by the 70s, the movement was dead. It was dead. It was dead. People talked that talk, but it was dead. You know what killed it? They brought out a movie called Superfly in those days, and it's put the seal on the death of it. Everybody cut off them naturals and got them Lord Jesuses, the hair all out, them perms and them maxi coats like Superfly. I mean, like that, it flipped the movement. That was a death knell. I'm telling you, I remember it like the whole show. But let me get back to, I think I done went off on another tangent. But I'm going to try to slow down and learned optimism and learned helplessness. I told you about a good friend of mine, big in those days and big now. But people have different ideas about why he did what he did. My idea was, since I talked to him all the time, he felt trapped. He felt like he couldn't do nothing. He was big in the black days and he was big in Islam. And I visited his community down in Dixie. And I said, man, this is nice. Everybody's saying Assalamu alaikum. Now, this was back in 83. He said, they're not with me. They're all there in his community. But he's saying, they're not with me. So, and same thing we would say if we look around here. I said, they ain't with me. They say what they want. I already know who's with me, if there is anybody. But anyway, this brother committed suicide. He's in the federal penitentiary right now. What he did was not called for. Because he had some of the characteristics that we all had before Islam. And some of it is good. I'm a man, I'm a human being, you know what I mean? You can't treat me certain kind of ways. Well, that's good for, self-esteem. But if the white man know you got too much of it, he'll just harass you to death, and you'll kill the people that come to harass you. Because I'm so-and-so. You can't mess with me like that. That's why all them pictures you see with me busted upside the head. When I was at the hospital, a black woman there said, this is the first time I ever seen a person joking and laughing about you should be, sad and blood. I said, no. Why? Because design fitna. Design fitna mean, okay, let's put it like this. You're going to have fitna, right? You know, if you're going to try to do right. The shaitan is not going to just hang out and take a vacation. The shaitan is going to move on you. And his job is relatively easy because the world is set up so that if you want to jump over the hoop, you have to develop character. You have to develop, and the more you reject the whispers of shaitan, the stronger you get, the better you get. But when you do the math, who do most people listen to? They listen to the shaitan. And the shaitan is negative. He's pessimistic for you. Don't get on. The people used to tell me when I gave maybe the party a lot of money a couple of times, man, you may need that money yourself. You shouldn't give it to the. And I was saying, well, you get some more money. If I got that, I'll get some more money. What he was a federal agent, and he didn't want me to help the brothers, although he was over there with them. Yeah, I mean, you could see, remember, afterthought, when you got time to think about all of this and put faces on everything, hey, man, stuff will come to you that happened 50 years ago. And you say, yeah, man, that was deep. Anyway, let me, I'm asking the believers out there at IAC to contribute to Masjid al-Islam. And we're going to come out there this Thursday, pass out DVDs, and then we'll come the next Thursday with boxes. Then we'll come the Thursday after that, which is 3 Thursdays from now, and we'll pass out the same DVD again. And then we'll come out that next time, and that'll be around Thanksgiving. I know thanks are going around, but I mean, it'll be about that time. We'll collect whatever we have, and then we're headed for California. Okay, we want to collect enough money here to give Boss Man a nice tussle. Okay. Now, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but we feel like we've entrapped the federal government. Oh, well, we know we have. But we're going to pull it off. This is what I believe. So, we're going to sue the government for $300 million. $300 million. People do it all the time. No, they don't do that all the time. But we've been working on this specific project, specifically for this specific project for about 20 years. But we've been working on the overall project for over 40 years. Okay. That's why longevity. King said it, longevity has its place, but he know he wasn't getting no longevity. They gonna kill him the next day. He already know, you can see it in his face, everything. Okay. One of the great revolutionaries used the terminology of protractedness. Protracted, this is the same thing as longevity, a long, stretched out war. We tried this battle before from the 70s and the early 70s, and it didn't work. We just didn't have experience. And we put all our witnesses together, then we came back and turned ourselves in from being in exile all those years, which was nice. But all our witnesses were drug dealers and other police. So they went to the criminals, my friends, and they said, oh, you going to testify for Big Hank? Well, boy, you're going to get you a new job. Because every time you open your mouth, we're going to have you in there. And this is the feds talking to them. And they know it's true. So I tied up a nice tight knot, and the government came and untied it. So all of my witnesses and the police I was telling you about, the Alameda County Sheriff, he told them the truth. And when they said, oh, they told him, they said in court, what they did in Oakland don't have nothing to do with us, because this is L.A., right? Don't have nothing to do with us. That was the county, that was the city, we're the federal government. So it was clear that, because the sheriff told them the truth. The county sheriff told them the truth. And they said if he stands up in court and says that they might believe him, you know. But now it was pretty easy to, Negroes show up in court in the early 70s. It's easy to set him up because, it's a nigger. And they show a couple of pictures of how I was dressed and stuff like that. So that's a drug dealer there. That ain't no civil rights fighter. You know what I mean? That's no East Oakland Enterprise developer. Anyway, a great recovery, a setback is nothing but a setup for a comeback. The reason we wrote this 9 years ago is because one of the guys that I like here in D.C., he used this phrase exactly like I'm used, but we always knew a setup for a comeback and all that. But I like that. Victor Jolly is his name. He's from D.C., one of the motivational speakers. Yeah, did you hear it?
Well, I didn't hear it, but I did read his profile.
Yeah, a setup ain't nothing but I haven't heard him in years, but when he said it, just like I said, that's us there. A setback ain't nothing but a setup for a comeback. And that's the story of some of our lives. But this time we're going to manage it. And it ain't going to be no quick deal. So all these things that happened to us in the last few years, you would think they are setbacks. They're terrible. they're dealing with property, they're doing this, right? What it is we're arranging the environment so that's what they do. That's what design fitna is. You say, boss man, you're going to stick me right over here, boss, right there. You're telling them where to stick you, right? Every time they did something, we told them, oh, they're going to take our property. Now, that means in Oakland, that means Mukhtar signed a thing he didn't have no right to do, and the government know, and they ain't even give him the money. The government kept the money, because if he would have got the amount of money that if you have to pay on a sale $4,500 in taxes, that means they sold the property for around $1 million. Right, if the tax, the tax on it, it would be, well, $1 million would be 6,000 or something like that. So it's way up there, right? If he'd have hit us for that kind of money, that nigga would have been gone to China, right? He wouldn't be, remember how he called? He haven't called in a month. He ain't called in a month. But that's either they done told him, stop calling. Because whatever they done stole from us, they can't keep. That's why we're charging them. You got to look at it. I'm going to wrap this up. We have arranged the constant behavior of the government would be totally illegal, which it is, right? What they have been doing to us. It's illegal and it's actually ridiculous. So that's what we're going to sue them for. Yeah, we're going to sue the government for that. And that's what we're going to do. And we had aid in this. How would we have aid? In the last years, the last 10 years, the last 12 years, when we start really hitting at the Zionist, Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare, we would watch our building. It had that sign out there. People would drive by and look at that sign and pull over and stop and contemplate. Some would be Arabs, and a lot of them was Zionist. They would send Zionists to the program in Zionist get-up. They would be regular white folks. It'd be two Negroes there. And the rest of the people, it would be Zionist. And when they wrote in their paper, try to remember what they said. They would be saying exactly what we said. It was free publicity. It would be hardly nobody at the program. Nobody. But Zionists, and they would be writing an article in their papers. It ain't no Negroes even know we have in the program. And they put it in their internet stuff, and everybody see it. Remember? Everybody see it. Free publicity. Free publicity. I mean, really free publicity, and the biggest ones, it's 300,000 people. The small ones got 300,000 people on their thing, and they see it. And guess what? It's written exactly like our flyer said it. It didn't change nothing. Why? Because when other people hear it, it would be so offensive. But what about those 25,000 Muslims, they say, that read it? They ain't going to say nothing. Whew. Boy, this is a bad boy here, just to say this stuff. Because they're putting my flyer on their thing, the way I wrote it. And then they realize what they done after several years. I'd have made fun of them. Yeah, y'all's as silly as, because they use our own pride against us. What's the thing that the Zionists have that's even superior to the white Americans? His pride as a Zionist. Yeah. It's bigger than the white man as the white man. Who taught, you could see when the Zionists are teaching the police, right? Because they do a Palestinian the same way they did George Floyd up there. To keep it, and the Zionists got all the records that the Zionist police teach them. When you see the police driving down the street with the lights blinking, that used to be, we said, I'm glad he do it because now I can see where the police is at, right? But for them in Israel, that puts a different thing on it. So they say, you do that here. And they do it. And for that police to keep his knee on that brother's neck was an inhumane method of carrying himself. That's the way Zionists do Palestinians. Because a regular white man would have just whooped you to death or shot you, but he wouldn't stay on people taking pictures of it, and he got his knee. The Zionists studied the records of the police. This guy been on the thing 17 times, so he'll do that. And they gave it to him. That's why, hey, we're on a roll here. We ain't even worried about it. Okay. So, Imam Musa's story of tenacity and endurance begins in the 1960s as manager of the biggest and most well-organized black mafia-type organization in Northern California. In the early 1970s, this organization transitioned to becoming a financial supporter of the black liberation movement in exile. That means when I went into exile with the brothers, I took money, and I took more money than they had. Nobody gave them that kind of money. Okay. Black liberation movements in exile from Algeria to Tanzania. After years of leading the first and only multi-million-dollar African-American managed cocaine smuggling operation from Bogota and Medellin, Colombia, to the USA, the late 70s witnessed the voluntary closing down. At the end of these adventures, Big Hank, later to be known as Abdul Alim Musa, emerged as the founder. That's our story. And it's a great story. Okay, now here we are in D.C. When we come to D.C., up there where you lived, all over here, everywhere, all this is our property. This is our property. We own 8 pieces of property. In order to get that property, you got to play certain psychological games. You have to let the government feel that they have totally infiltrated you, which they have, and you're not aware of it. You've seen pictures of hundreds of people at Eid's and all that here, right? The prayer lines would be all the way to the back. I mean, in a regular Jummah. They don't do that now. Why? Because we blew our own cover. When we let them know that we doing that on purpose, we already know what we're doing. So they called all their folks home. Called them home, and they left. Because they was all there. We knew all the time. We knew who we was dealing with. Why we know? Because that's the way boss man operates. And then what we are in real life is just like the Chinese laundromans and Deng Xiaoping did to the Americans. The Americans built China. All the factories closed over here. You take 1980s, 90s, they closed them down here, they sent them to China. But China had one rule. We didn't watch the whole world. We're going to have You're not going to just send us, we're going to have the transfer of technology, how to do it too. So that was part of the thing. But the greedy capitalist, you know the rule, says a capitalist will sell you a rope to hang himself with. And that's true. If you're going to hang a capitalist with a cheap rope, he'll say, hold it. That cheap rope. He'll say, hey, man, I give you a bargain deal on the strongest and the best rope in the world. And they'll bargain with you for that rope to hang himself. That's what they said about the capitalist. The capitalist will sell you a rope to hang him with. Okay, now, we had a lot of stuff going for us. The biggest thing, we was black. That's big. That's a big help. So you got to have a lot of, you got to know who you are because, in this strategic stuff, you can't be arrogant. You can't be arrogant. Like our friend, real good friend. You can't be arrogant like that. Why? They'll just study you and find he's arrogant. He can't be fearful because if he's fearful, we'll threaten him with his kids. The kids is this, and they'll, use them and kill them. And they're going to study you to find out which button do we have to push. They pushed the white girl button, like that. They pushed the money button. He didn't already had tons of money. They push it. Let's scare them to death. So they try to scare you, and you just laugh at them. After the third time, you be waiting for them. And when they jump out and say, boo, you be there too. Boo back, and you start having fun with them. Okay, that's why having fun, you have to design a behavior that fits your character. And if you was a kid in the life of the party all the time, and that means you can do that. You can pull that off. Another guy that's got some of the same basics as you, but his self-esteem is too high. No, his self-esteem is just like yours, but he can't lower his. So they're easy target for the government. The government said, I'll do something to him, right? Make him mad, and he'll kill everybody, right? It's the simplest thing that they're happy, right? They're happy. Okay, well, why don't I respond? You didn't see the pictures, blood all upside the head, everything. No problem, no big deal. Why? Because we're in a struggle, we're in a battle. And we got it good over here. Why? Because the worst thing they can do is arrest you in your own masjid over and over again and bust you upside the head. And the guy that do it is a bum. So you set them up to make them do that. You make them do that. Yeah. They do stuff like that to us. Why can't we do it to them? Design fitna. You get the fitna you want by designing the setup. That's what we've done with Boss Man, and it's too late. He can't get out of it. I just mentioned a few things and then I'll close. Remember, everybody, I just want y'all to donate to us and donate well. We didn't have too much going on. I'm just trying to tell you something you would not understand. It's the colored way to deal with the white man and the Zionists. No matter how long I sit here, you're not going to understand, but at least you would have heard it. Because what door you want to come in, whatever one it takes to get the job done. If Boss man gonna underestimate you. You play with him and make him underestimate you. If he just doing a little bit, all you do, you see stuff and you act so slow that you almost be Mississippi-ized, in behavior. Yasa and Nausa and scratching. You got that. You're having fun now. Don't worry about it. Some people can't do that because they're not making this a game. This is a game. It's like chess is a game. War is a game. The ones that play in that environment, to them it's a game, right? And they want to take home the goal. They want to take all right. To them it's a game. To the ones that's managing it, they're not getting killed. The children of the poor kids is getting killed. They're using them like pawns. They're not gonna. Whatever happened, not gonna happen to them, right? They're just ego. All we lost. You know what I mean? The other guy is crippled and crazy and everything else, right? So you have to lose. You have to use this stuff. Fundraising, Juma dinner. Remember Imam Luke? Y'all may not remember Imam Luke Man. And in 2009, he was killed up in, he's a good friend of mine. He was in Imam Jamil's community. But they came there and you could read all information on source number 1 up to source number 6. And they tried to give him some money to do something in Detroit. He said, we ain't gonna hurt no innocent people. You ever read that? We're not gonna hurt no innocent people. You know what I mean? The government knew. But then they come in and they shot him and killed him. They shot him 18 times, some say 21 times. Okay? He was Imam Jamil's main man. Okay. How was they able to set him up? Oh, we're just going to have some, we got some computers and some this over there at the warehouse. We just want you to, all he had to do was come and move them around. And he did. So it's receiving stolen goods. The feds come in, it's a setup. That's why somebody come, man, we got them computers. I said, I don't want them. I don't want nothing like that. If you got something to come out of the store, you got a receipt for that, I don't want none of that. You know what I mean? But they think that's the way we are. Why you think we're still here? No. Oh, that, I don't want that. Oh, niggas love white women. Hey, ring, ring, ring. It's 12 o'clock at night, pouring down rain. Would you come and pick me up and take me over? I said, I ain't going no. Oh, you think it's 12 o'clock at night? And you a white woman? And you want me to drive you? This is back in the 80s. In the early 80s when they still had a little shine on them. I said, no, I'll call you a cab, but I ain't going to. Why? Because I could look at the thing, and that's how it worked, And they done did 50 million things, have none of them work because of underestimation. That's the nigga, he'll go for this, he'll go for that. And all they doing is throwing bait out, and we feeding them back their own bait. That's why we have the lecture, White Man on the Line. Remember that? That means we got him on the line. And when you hook the fish, you know you got him. Because anytime you put a little tug, you can feel a little tug back. Or he trying to take it, he rests a little, try to take it over here. But he hooked. We got Boss Man hooked. And we got the Zionists hooked. Hey, they've been outdone. And the Negro is the one that outdid them. Okay, so, dear friends, we want y'all to help our community. And this is with cash money. So when we come out there, you can have the cash money with you. I think that's the best way. Don't send it to Masjid al-Islam and all that stuff. I don't think that it's necessary for any more questions. We thank y'all very much. And just one more thing I just want to show you. There's one thing about your community. Remember, this is the BAM earthquake in Iran. And it says, name of Almighty, presented to Masjid al-Islam. That's because we help raise funds for the earthquake. Okay, but this is 2004. This is 2004. When this earthquake happened, there was a sea change in the Daftar and other offices' mentality. What happened? We help raise funds, but we don't have a lot of money, and we don't have. So for this earthquake, they sent us a thank you thing and a little plaque for it, but we didn't raise much money. You know who raised the most money? All of those runaways and everything in LA and everywhere, those Iranians, because this is an Iranian project, they raised millions of dollars, and we raised a few thousand. That's when there was a sea change in attitude. When y'all looked at us, not y'all, like y'all, but those of us that were very popular and loved and very well known by the Iranian community in America couldn't raise a lot of money. We just couldn't. Why? Because we didn't do that. We were like the revolutionaries. But the ones that ran off from Iran with millions of dollars and the big places in LA and all those places for this earthquake, they raised millions of dollars. And they saw what they did, and they saw what they did, and they made a decision based on income. That was their mistake. But they made it. Don't make that again. Do not make that again. Thank you very much, and be prepared for our brothers to come by on Thursday nights out at IEC and help us get through this. Remember, I don't care what you say, we're still in this together. And I haven't enjoyed your revolution is the answer to our revolution. Remember, this revolution in Iran slipped up on everybody. It was a surprise. Okay, just so happened we had been Muslim a long time, and now we look at revolution as not racial, but based on Islam. So we're on the same team. And that's why we travel around this country for years, all day long, every day, to every university in the country, trying to keep everybody's spirits high. From the 1980s all the way up till a few years ago. I'll close with this. It was a mistake for some of the well-known people to exclude us from the front page of activity and adopt people like Medea Benjamin and all those people. It was a thorough mistake. And there's a few more mistakes, but I'm not going to talk about them. We're in the same boat. I'm just going to mention, we thank you for supporting Yemen like you do, for supporting Hezbollah like you do, for supporting Iraq like you do, and you fought them for 8 years, the bloodiest war in that region for all of that time, right? And even Afghanistan. So we thank you very much. Now, we're in a big struggle here. We're getting ready to initiate our third stage of super big struggle. And we want you in it with us. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.